I'm absolutely delighted to kick off this session for our alumni and the parent community. My name is Michael Diamond. I'm the Academic Director of the Integrated Marketing and Communications Department, which operates within our Division of Programs in Business at the School of Professional Studies. And it's a particular pleasure for me to welcome to this session two of our colleagues from Shanghai. Paul Lin and Bryce Whitwam, both themselves distinguished marketers and experts in the area, not just of what's going on in China, but marketing and communications and digital strategy more generally, have been leading courses for us in what we call our Go Local program, which has enabled us to extend what we teach to a large number of students actually based on our campus and adjacent buildings in Shanghai. And Paul and Bryce, in a very innovative way, last year devised a series of conversations with leading thinkers and business figures and marketing experts in China, with a view to helping us all sort of better understand what was going on in China and the lessons we could learn. So I'm delighted to be joined by Paul and Bryce. And as we go through the talk today, which we've titled Lessons from China, you're going to hear the voices of four guests that we had join us whilst we were curating these conversations. Alex Duncan is the co-founder and the product lead at a company called Kwo, which is a very innovative sort of social media marketing digital strategy agency based in China. Bessie Lee is a very distinguished marketer herself. She co-founded most recently and is CEO of a group called Within Link, which actually does sort of strategic investing in the MarTech sector. And she's now also the CEO of JLL, which is a major real estate and investment management firm. We were very lucky to be joined by Gary Chu. Gary is the SVP of Global Online for Estee Lauder, and has actually quite recently moved from Shanghai to New York, where he's continuing his work leading e-commerce for Estee Lauder. And finally, William Balbeen, who is a general partner at the venture capital firm SOSV, and the managing director of China Accelerator, which is a sort of startup development program, which I believe Paul and Bryce themselves are involved in sort of helping new and innovative companies in China find sort of their legs. So I think probably the most operative question is really why focus on China, and I would say that the reason we wanted to focus on China was partly having this sort of made this wonderful connection with Bryce and Paul and their colleagues, but also obviously much more broadly the influence and importance of China. China clearly plays a critical role innovating around all sorts of different digital solutions, which impact directly how we as marketers and communicators operate. And they've also been at the forefront of exploring some quite disruptive business models, which has enabled them to tap into all sorts of new market spaces that really didn't exist before. And in so doing, they seem to have attracted a very interesting, and obviously to advertisers and marketers, very important community of young and relatively affluent consumers. And while I'll allow the experts, Bryce and Paul and our colleagues who you're here speaking to sort of really fill in the detail, I thought it was worthwhile sharing at least some of the things I heard and my takeaways, several of which we're actually going to sort of probe in more detail. I think without a doubt, it's clear to any student of marketing and business generally, not least international trade and policy, that China is a very significant player in the global economy, and along with various different developments in the political environment, it really behooves us all to better understand China and its nuances, so that the companies that we work with, whether they're here in the States or around the world, can shape and guide their policies and their activities. Yes, so we're trying to provide not just students, but also business leaders some more context. Secondly, and you'll learn this in some detail, it's a very unique digital ecosystem, and it's one established around mobile. And that has caused, I think, the market to develop in certain ways, which is different than we've seen in the US or even in Europe. And one of the things that has proven most interesting and was critical and central, I guess, during COVID particularly, has been a sort of rapid development and an integration and emerging around new retail. And really sort of the idea of robotics and AI and local delivery and all sorts of new technologies. And as we'll discuss a little bit, the integration of those things offline and online. There's no question that the scale and the impact of the central government initiatives has accelerated a lot of the developments that we'll be talking about today, and the commitment that the government has made up to including green initiatives or its investment in infrastructure, being centrally planned and carrying a significant amount of weight across the whole business environment in China, has ensured that certain activities, speed along and are done in relatively consistent ways. And finally, and I think this is often a question, on the minds of all of us looking at China from afar, is, the discussions we had with all of the speakers suggest that the Chinese consumers themselves are actually quite open-minded about the new technology and even some of the issues related to privacy. But one of the things we found was that the platforms themselves are fiercely competitive and in many respects closed. So, with that brief introduction, I really wanted to turn it over to Paul and ask Paul if he would, perhaps comment and sort of take us off in a direction, as indeed he is a voice from Shanghai.
Great, thank you, Michael. It's been an interesting couple of years, especially with COVID and the pandemic sort of proliferating around the world. China is still growing. It's still the second largest economy in the world. And it's very important that we understand the vital nuances of the market, the infrastructure, and companies that are part of it in terms of this growth and this acceleration that is happening in terms of innovation. It's predicted that China is going to grow probably around 6 to 7% GDP this quarter in 2022. And the containment strategy that has happened with COVID has allowed for unique sort of, especially with digital, a unique sort of digital transformation to happen. In one of the clips, Alex talks about how China growth is very unique to the market, especially around mobile. So let's play a clip and show you how that has happened.
So when we look at the growth of China and the internet access, you may be surprised to know that still only 65% of the population in China have access to the internet, despite very rapid growth of internet penetration. One of the things that's most interesting about the growth of the internet in China is that it has been largely mobile first. And to this day, China still outranks many other Western countries, the US included, in the penetration of mobile devices.
There are different players in China, which creates a unique ecosystem. Unlike the US, which has main players of Google and Facebook and some other players, there are 4 major players in China. First one is ByteDance, which you probably know from TikTok, they're owners of TikTok. There's Baidu, which is the main search engine here. Alibaba, which is their e-commerce play, and then Tencent, which is a conglomerate of gaming and social media. We call these the BBAT. And there are some similarities and there are some differences from the Western markets. And Alex now will explain further.
So here we tried to research all of the different places where they have investments and stakes. And the fascinating thing is you can see that Alibaba and Tencent really try to take each other on in every single front. It's not like Facebook and Twitter and Amazon, where they generally, to a certain extent, stay a little bit, and Google stay out of each other's turf. Alibaba and Tencent want to do everything the other rival is doing and try to do it better. And you can see in the one rare case where somebody else comes along and tries to do it even better than them is short video, where we see Douyin has really come out of nowhere. They decide to club together and invest into Douyin's main rival, Kuaishou.
How has the China ecosystem evolved in the way it has? And what are the origins behind this? More importantly, how does this drive innovation? One of the key ways to see this is through China's one-child policy that started in the early 80s. Bessie Lee will now talk more specifically about how the one-child policy has affected the growth and changes within the system, and how much we can learn from how the platforms have evolved because of this phenomenon.
One-child policy directly helped accelerate social media innovation in this country. So one-child policy was put in place or became effective September 1980. And that one-child policy, sort of was terminated or upgraded to two-children policy about 3 years ago. So between 1980 to about 3 years ago, we have close to 225 million people that grew up being the only child in the family. So when you're the only child in the family, there's no siblings in the family. Now, of course, you have your neighbors, your cousins, your schoolmates. That's sort of your local sibling networks. But when social media first arrived, it was godsend, because social media allowed this one-child generation to further extend that sibling network into outside of their city, outside of their provinces, and even national, even international. So that of course, there are many reasons behind why social media accelerated so quickly in China, but that desire to connect, that desire to express myself, so I can, through that, find people who resonate what I'm talking about, who resonate what I'm showing on social media. That was one of the important drivers behind the social media acceleration. So if we look at the first social media in China, which is QQ, introduced by Tencent more than 20 years ago now, it took them only 2 years. Remember, this is like 22 years ago, right? It took them 2 years to hit that first 100 million users. And then about 15 years later, the same parent company, Tencent, introduced WeChat. And it took WeChat even less time, 1 year, to hit that first 100 million users. And if you look at the latest like short form video, it took them even quicker. These are some of their users. These are the monthly active users number. But if we compare that to Facebook, which is an international platform, it took Facebook 4 years to hit that first 100 million users.
The underpinning of everything in China is through a very sophisticated mobile payment system. And this has become ubiquitous with the innovation and how everything is driven here, both within traditional retail as well as online retail. Bessie Lee will now talk about this and see how the online mobile payment system has not only affected the digital ecosystem in China, but also the customer journey.
And WeChat payment or mobile payment is not just in five-star hotels or premium shopping malls or coffee shop. It's pretty much everywhere. So like in this photo, this butcher in the wet market, or this little mom and pop shops, they can just they can generate their own QR code from Alipay. The blue color is Alipay, and the other one is WeChat Pay. They generate their own QR code to collect money. Even street artists, they can generate their own QR code to collect money if you like their performances.
So, I think that was a really fascinating overview of what's started to really drive and been behind the rapid growth of China's digital market. But I wonder, Paul, if you could sort of perhaps take us now on a slightly deeper dive on, how the Chinese digital ecosystem, how it's really unique, in what ways it is unique and distinct from other ecosystems that we're aware of.
Yeah, China has a very unique digital ecosystem, and a lot of that stems from what they call the Great Firewall, right? The government cutting off external platforms that don't adhere to local laws and conditions, and has created this what we call here the intranet, right? And this intranet has created innovative ways of connecting social media to commerce opportunities, and for brands to be able to leverage that connection between social, e-commerce, online and offline, solving for convenience and the completion of a customer journey from awareness, interest, all the way to purchase and loyalty in one single seamless loop. This unique infrastructure has given the foundation for innovation to occur. In the first clip that I'm going to show you, China essentially, a lot of people and a lot of pundits have talked about China copying, right? There's been a lot of reports and a lot of articles written in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, if you look back in 5 or 10 years ago, about this innovation around copying. But there were inadequacies that were happening in the market. And so what ended up happening with copying ended up pivoting into innovation. Chinese tech companies were agile. They were able to innovate a lot quicker than the more traditional tech companies coming out of Silicon Valley, without a lot of the challenges that Western environments had. People were more open to adopting new features, new policies, and new ways of doing things. This led Chinese companies to create their own innovation at scale through huge user platforms like WeChat and Taobao. Let me show you the first clip that talks about that.
One thing I'm really going to try and dispel in today's talk is this idea that China is a place of copycats. I think this next example really illustrates the point very well for me. Back in 2015, Jessica Lessing, who is the editor of The Information, a Silicon Valley-based publication, wrote an op-ed saying what Mark Zuckerberg could learn from WeChat. Then in 2019, after Facebook had implemented some new features that were not dissimilar to WeChat, she commented, "Oh, it's interesting that they've now gone and done this." And Mark replied on her post saying, "If only I'd listened to your advice 4 years ago." For me, this is one of the best examples of how China, having gone from this place where it had a reputation for being copycats, has now gone on to actually be a place of real innovation in the online world.
Out of this innovation, WeChat has emerged as a very unique social media application. In China, we call it the OS of your life. It is something that you use for very basic social media communication, instant messaging, but it has allowed for mobile payment, your ability to book appointments, to pay your utility bills, to order a taxi, or to order food. Alex Duncan will take you through a little bit about what WeChat is all about and how it's an important part of life and of innovation happening here in China.
So let's take a little bit more of a look into WeChat. To try and help you understand how WeChat compares to the West, if you were in the US, you would probably need all of these apps to replace the functionality of WeChat. WeChat is not just a messaging platform like WhatsApp, it also is social networking, it's mobile payments, you can order a car, you can book your travel, your hotel, your flight, and you can read articles, you can get restaurant reviews, you can buy products, you can sell things secondhand, and of course, as they just announced in their latest numbers, they see 500 million searches, rivaling Baidu, China's #1 search engine. When we look at the stats, they're absolutely incredible. 45 billion messages a day, 66 minutes a day, and it's responsible for 34% of the entire mobile internet traffic in China. And as we said, mobile is the dominant platform. One of the things that's really driven the success of WeChat is QR codes. And I recently read that actually COVID has made QR codes more popular in the West.
Within WeChat, there's an entire ecosystem of what we call mini programs that has allowed for unique brand engagement without separate mobile apps that you have to download either through Apple's iTunes Store or through Android. This mini program ecosystem essentially bypasses all of that and connects directly and very seamlessly within the WeChat ecosystem. So you could tap into mobile payment, you could tap into instant messaging, and all the features that WeChat makes available to you. Alex Duncan gives a little bit of preview on how mini programs work.
Now, this is one of my favorites, and it's definitely something that you're missing out on in the West. So what are mini programs? Well, they're tiny little apps that load instantly, can be built with simple technologies that you'd use to build a website. But the key thing is they're deeply integrated into WeChat. And as Thibaut here says in this quote, they give you 80% of the functionality of a native app, but with only 20% of the development effort. Now, the key thing about mini programs is they are instantly available from within a chat. So if we were to take an example here, you can share a card from a mini program there, and you can instantly click that and go into that mini program to complete your action. So in this case, we can sign up for a workout. We can see other people that have signed up for the workout. Because WeChat mini programs are restricted in their size to only a few megabytes, it was initially 1 megabyte, which was very low. They've since relaxed those restrictions as penetration of 4 and 5G has happened more. They've grown, but they still open instantly. You don't have to go to an app store and search for them. You don't have to download them. You just click and you're right into them. They're a fantastic point for brands to have engagements like membership programs where you can really connect with your users and provide additional functionality.
And one interesting thing that has happened within China based on the unique ecosystem is this element around influencers and celebrities. We had William Baobing come in and talk about this from a startup perspective and from a monetization perspective. This whole thing around content versus traditional media. If you look at how WeChat and Tencent monetize, advertising is number 3 in terms of the amount of money that they make, versus if you look at Google and Facebook, advertising is number 1. So paid media is the driver of revenue from a Western perspective, versus here in China, it's only number 3. So this element around content versus paid media is very unique to this market here in China. So here's a clip where William talks about that.
There's celebrity and then there's influencer, and understanding the difference is key. So you have like traditional celebrity, you have online celebrity, and then an influencer. An influencer does not mean that you have 20, 30,000 followers. It could mean that you have 500 or 1,000 friends or 5,000 friends. But these people drive behavior, and especially they drive purchasing behavior. So in a market like China, where paid advertising doesn't really work, or the platforms don't want you to spend a lot of money on that, the model is different in China. The model is really focused not so much on a media-based model like Google and Facebook, where you pay ads money to get access, but in China, the platform is a revenue share model. And what they want to do is have the best content on their platforms, whether it be Ali or Tencent, and to have the best salespeople on their platforms. And those are known as influencers. There's KOLs, which are key opinion leaders, and KOCs, which are just like normal people who can get out there and help you sell. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I mean, this is a ByteDance Douyin, which is TikTok. And very different than the US, where e-commerce from individuals has been for many years against the terms of service of Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp. It's really taking off for the last few years in China. And this is a major driver of traffic, major driver of revenue. And one of the reasons why China is a content first market, as opposed to kind of a media-driven market where people put content up and then have a gate. In China, things are very open, and then what you get is people who are providing that content, providing that entertainment, but then they're also monetizing, and it's all a revenue share-based model. So if there's one thing that you learned tonight, it's all about, or this morning for you, it's all about revenue share.
So Bryce, I wonder, having heard some interesting aspects to the digital ecosystem more broadly from Paul and some of the other speakers, if you could help take us on a bit more of a deep dive on what's shaping the e-commerce pieces more specifically.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Right now, China is the largest e-commerce market in the world. It makes up about 40% of the total retail economy here, and it's continuing to grow at light speed. The growth really comes from a foundation of the big internet companies, the ones that we mentioned in the past, and how they've been able to establish the infrastructure. And really, e-commerce dominates every aspect of the experience here. Yes, it's fueled by mobile payments and data and sophisticated distribution, but it's also a place where people interact and socialize as well. And I think that's the biggest difference between e-commerce in China and e-commerce that you might be familiar with, in that it's really evolved from what we call transactional e-commerce, where you go on Amazon to buy something specifically, to social e-commerce, where social media plays an active role in the whole decision process. And that has really helped fuel not only the economy of e-commerce, but also in terms of how advertisers actually reach out to consumers. And even that has affected retail stores. They have become a tool of digital commerce. It's about really interacting with consumers as they walk into the store with their mobile phones. How are they going to interact with your products, which they may, in fact, not even buy in the store? They are actually buying them on e-commerce platforms. In that sense, retail becomes a totally different game. And that's where the term new retail comes from. It refers to the combining of offline retail and online retail worlds in the entire customer experience. Now, in our first clip, Alex will talk about the 3 different approaches to e-commerce in China and how they provide different innovative paths within the marketplace.
E-commerce in China is actually dominated by marketplaces. There has been a very interesting trend with more socially driven commerce as well. And this is similar to what you see on Instagram, where people are wanting to be told what to buy instead of the more traditional model of doing the discovery themselves. This chart will tell you the main story you need to know, which is Alibaba absolutely dominates e-commerce with 56% of the market, but Tencent is not letting them get away with it. Every single platform is now adding direct e-commerce, and social selling is a hot topic. I question whether or not, as a passionate brand marketer, I question whether or not it is the best thing for all marketing to be so focused on selling, but that is the way things are definitely focused in this market at this point.
Now, if you're going to talk about e-commerce in China, it's no question that you cannot avoid Alibaba. And Alibaba is easily the largest. It's not 90% of the market, but it's easily the largest e-commerce ecosystem. And it's important to remember, as I mentioned, that Alibaba is not just about e-commerce, but it includes a lot of other different levels of services that interact with consumers through their daily lives. Gary Chu of Estée Lauder will give you an overview of the Alibaba ecosystem in the next 2 videos.
So this is a little bit more details about how the Alibaba and Tencent experience looks like, because I will talk about these 2 big giants at late stage. So Alibaba actually, they are changing the way how people are shopping. Yeah. So basically, when you live in China and you can buy almost everything from the Alibaba platform. So majority, the major platform actually is Taobao. So this is the most famous platform. So within Taobao is actually the super app. They have they are not only a platform just for sales. They're also a platform for the content. So you will see that on Taobao platform, they have recently they launched the short video on Taobao and replace the still pictures for the recommended product. And also they are very famous for the live streaming. So you will see you must hear a lot about their KOL live streaming like Austin Lee and Wei. These are 2 KOL that drive the majority of the Taobao live streaming sales. So on top of the KOL live streaming, they also encourages the brand to do the brand live streaming. Yeah, so this is another aspect. where how the live streaming is growing up in China. The search engine. So this actually was now Taobao has become the biggest search engine in China. This is mainly because a couple of reasons. The one of the major reasons is that Taobao has already received most of the brand on their platform, and you will see the you can find all of the products from these brands and all of the information, all of the content. So with the sufficient supply of the content and the product, consumer can get a better result from Taobao compared with other search engine. So payment and local service, these are two very new. So payment is not new actually. Payment like Alipay and WeChat, this has been existing in China for a long while. Most of Chinese people, they don't really have the credit card, but they almost everyone have the e-wallet. Yeah. So WeChat and Alipay has been existing in China for a long while. But how to use the WeChat and Alipay to drive the local service, this is become a new competition area. And I will talk about this later, how the local service looks like. So in terms of the e-commerce, actually, if you look at Alibaba e-commerce, they have the domestic business like Tmall, and they have also cross-border business like Tmall Global. And this is all about the B2C part, but also they have the C2C part and for the individual seller, which is Taobao.
Live streaming has been the latest fad in China. And it's not like the QVC network that you might think of, where there's people online talking constantly or selling products. There's different aspects of live streaming, and it's become a critical part of the offering within China, where consumers now expect human interaction within their e-commerce ecosystems. They expect to talk to people and actually engage and interact with a live streamer. Live streaming is just not sales. It's also customer service. It's also about after sales follow-up. It's a very important part of the whole shopping experience. And Bessie Lee will now explain this further.
Travel a lot to the UK and also from time to time to the US. I would say that the e-commerce shopper experience that you have in the country compared to China, you're probably at about e-commerce 2.0. I would say China's e-commerce, that at least from a user's experience, is already at e-commerce 4.0. And the most recent development is this thing called live streaming e-commerce. What is live streaming e-commerce? So what live streaming e-commerce is, there is always a super sales. So these three that I'm showing you here, these are the top 3 super sales in China, meaning they sold the most number of products and the highest value of products on their daily e-commerce live streaming e-commerce session. So you have a super sales. The gentleman I show you is called Austin Lee and Via and also Xingba. So a super sales, they will sit in front of their mobile handsets, and they will have a merchandise to feature and introduce. And plus they have a very developed, mature e-commerce backend, which is shopping and payment gateway and also logistics, the whole logistic network. So in Austin Lee's example, if you like the lipsticks that he was featuring and introducing, at the end of that 2-3 minutes for that particular brand, that he will then on the screen will pop up a purchase banner. You click the banner, you choose the color of the lipsticks you want, that product will go to your shopping basket. So after you finish viewing their daily live streaming e-commerce session, then you go to your shopping basket. You decide, if I want to buy all this or I might delete some of them, and then you click buy, make the payment, and the rest will take care of it. Some of the items you will receive the very next day. So this is what live streaming, this is what the Chinese shopper now are, their user experience when it comes to e-commerce. They're no longer satisfied by just looking at still photos of product. They want to see these. Some of them are like Austin Lee. He used to be a beauty advisor for Lancome, I believe. So he's a subject matter expert when it comes to cosmetic. So they all want to hear from these subject matter experts what was the benefit and what was the feature and the claims of the product. So this is what live streaming e-commerce is about in China, and this is the size of this feature. So as of end of last year, we had more than 600 million online streaming users, and that number is still climbing. And that's the market scale that you're looking at in terms of value.
As I previously mentioned, new retail is combining offline and online worlds to enhance the customer experience. This is flourishing greatly in China, and we believe that this will be the next future in the West as well. And how people actually will interact, and when they shop in stores, what will they do? How will the digital ecosystem play a part of that? Gary Chu now gives a quick overview of the new retail ecosystem in China and how it's affecting the entire shopping marketplace.
This has been a hot topic for almost maybe 3 to 5 years. Until recently, we see how the model evolved to a grocery shopping model, because the model actually starting from the department store, like that's why Alibaba acquired Yingtai a couple of years ago. And at the very beginning, lots of companies also put a huge effort on the supermarket model. But in the end, now it seems like the promise model go to the grocery shopping, like what Alibaba is doing with Hema, is English name called the Fresh Triple, right? So basically, you can buy everything. So the fresh foods, the meat, the vegetable from the fresh ship nearby your apartment. It typically it is take around 30 minutes to 1 hour to receive the products. So that's why that's why Alibaba and other internet companies, they are very focused on they call it the 3 kilometer economic cycle. Yeah. So basically in each 3 kilometer economic cycle, you will have one store. So this will mainly serve the consumer living in that area, and it's super convenient. Yeah, I guess for most of the Chinese students, you have the chance to try this when you live in China.
So Paul, we've heard now some really good background on why China is important, and we should be paying attention to. We've heard a lot about the overall digital ecosystem and ways in which it varies and differs in meaningful ways that we can learn from. And we heard some specifics just there from Bryce and his guests about the e-commerce platforms and new retail specifically. It seems that China has remained very innovative, and I think we'd all be interested in understanding what you feel has driven Chinese innovation and what may indeed continue to drive that innovation.
Yeah, Michael, that's a great question. You've heard over the last today around innovation around mobile, around e-commerce. You're seeing a lot of innovation that's happening now from offline into online, and carrying your online digital persona into the offline world, into retail, into bricks and mortars, into a Starbucks, and being able to have that interaction. So all of that data is mapped. A lot of the innovation that you're seeing here in China, there was a recent report that came out around how some of it is government backed, right? So the ability for private enterprise and government to work together to have a long-term perspective. And I think, again, that is very much a nuance within this market that has driven innovation, because innovation is more long-term focused versus the next quarter and what's happening from a stock market and a shareholder perspective, all right? So China continues to strive in driving this innovation, and a lot of it is through customer quality, developing better products for brands and products to work together to come out with new flavors, new type of product offerings that you frankly do not see happening that quickly in the West or in European markets, right? The ability to improve people's lives, delivering personal, customized messages and content and experiences that has essentially moved China from what I said earlier, from a nation that would copy innovation to one that is leading innovation and will drive growth in the next 5 to 10 years. Many of this innovation will not be suitable for the West for a number of reasons. One could be the infrastructure is not there, the misalignment between different leaders, either from a private enterprise perspective or working closely with government to make sure that that it's good for the people and the markets that they serve. The first clip I'm going to show you, Bessie Lee actually talks a little bit about that, and it talks about the origins of Chinese innovation. And it's a funny take on where it started from, around how they copied McDonald's and KFC, but now they're leading into innovation with Chinese companies either crowdsourcing ideas or building upon ideas from each other to build unique services and products that you frankly will not be able to see in the West that quickly. So let's play the clip.
So I'm sure a lot of you in the audience were thinking, well, can China really innovate? Especially when you look at photos like this, replicate of iPhone, we got iPair, iOrange, iWhatever, got KLG, we got Michael alone with upside down, McDonald's logo or signs. We got Sunbox, we got Bimbos, I can't even pronounce that. We got Omega and Herwitz, what have you, near London Bridge. And then win instead of Land Rover. So you're like, yeah, can China really innovate? However, don't forget also, I'm sure you have read about the WeChat, that very unique super app kind of ecosystem that they have built. That's one of its kind when they first did it in the world. Mobile payment originated in China. Now it's rolling out to the rest of the world as well. Xiaomi, don't see Xiaomi just another handset maker. Xiaomi, when they first started, Lei Jun started this open source crowd sourcing and crowd wisdom kind of open collaboration platform for their R&D. Now that system, that ecosystem, still as of today is unique in its own kind. Not just among handsets or home appliances manufacturers, but a lot of the business, all the business in the world. So that's Xiaomi. I'm sure you have heard about ByteDance, the parent company behind TikTok. Originally in China, it's an AI-backed platform, and they have more than just TikTok. They have many other apps, but all of them have this critical AI, engine and algorithm in the back, feeding information, feeding content, and also help curate and create content as well for influencers. Pinduoduo, I don't know how many of you understand this company. They're listed in NASDAQ, but they started or launched this, I would say, unique social e-commerce platform that I don't think you can see that, or you have seen that kind of model or platform anywhere else in the world. So you look at all these, we can innovate.
The second one comes from telecoms, right? So in the same way that you have Verizon, you have T-Mobile, that is the basic infrastructure. The infrastructure here in China is dominated by China Mobile, China Unicom, where they work very closely with the government in trying to drive innovation and provide value to customers and to people within different provinces and different cities. So this innovation, either from 4G, you're seeing, again, a lot more adoption of 5G. You're seeing Chinese mobile companies adopting or creating different product SKUs that have 5G integration. With this 5G integration and high-speed data, the private enterprise could then build upon it and build innovation on top of that. So Bessie Lee talks a little bit about that innovation in that infrastructure layer that allows for AI, that allows for big data to be used and processed more quickly to develop new products and services that we frankly probably don't even know about right now.
Another very important infrastructure is the telecom service coverage, the depth and the breadth of the coverage. So if I can make the comparison between China and US, so in China, at the end of last year, 4G satellite station or wireless cell site, we have close to 5.8 million. Even 5G, we already have 600,000 stations. So there's no doubt that given another 2 years, the 5G coverage will be at least about half of the 4G. But if the number I searched online was correct for the United States, at the end of 2 years ago, it's about 400,000. Even if we double it for last year, we were still talking about less than 1 million wireless cell sites in the US. So that, coverage, the wide and the deep coverage of the wireless system, of course, encourage people to more people to subscribers and mobile subscribers. So we're 1.7 billion subscribers. So everyone has got at least one phone, and some of us got 2 or 3 phones. But it's not just about communication. Right now, mobile is becoming the primary device to access anything, to access internet, to shop online. Because if you have such a great and efficient railway system, a lot of people are on the road traveling all the time, whether it's for business or for leisure. And mobile device becomes that device that you rely on to stay connected with pretty much everything, right? Stay connected with your family, with your business, with your friends on social media.
So that's, really great. I think we've now had a wonderful sort of trip around almost all the bases. We've talked about, why China is an important marketplace. We've talked about broadly, innovation and change in the digital ecosystem. And then Bryce just took us on a journey more specifically into the e-commerce platforms with some of his guests. And so I think it's a good question now, perhaps to reflect a bit more broadly on what's driving Chinese innovation and what the future might be. So that's I think a great topic to turn over to my colleague Paul Lin. So
today you heard a lot from myself, you heard a lot from Bryce, and both of us are practitioners. We started off our careers and our education in the West, and then we moved to China for a better opportunity, for a unique challenge. And through that process, we have worked very closely with brands in terms of innovation and this digital infrastructure that is starting to build right now. We've brought that into the classroom at NYU Shanghai. And I think what is very interesting and what we believe is interesting for the students here is that ability to be able to leverage what they're learning in China and add in the marketing layer. I'm going to turn it over to Michael and say and ask him, how is NYU sort of going to lead this space, and how SPS is going to drive this innovation and help bridge the gap between what you're seeing in the US and what is happening here on the ground in China?
Well, I really appreciate that question. And I think, some of the work the 3 of us have been doing together with our colleagues is a good, evidence and showing for the kinds of ways that the School of Professional Studies has chosen to engage with these kinds of issues. As you know, our integrated marketing and PR programs, which are about 1,100 students strong right now, educate and engage students from across mainland China, from Taiwan, from Hong Kong, and all sorts of countries outside of the US. And so it's a very key part of our DNA that we have a global perspective and that we enter into this dialogue with our students and with business colleagues so that we're all intellectually curious and learning and trying to find new knowledge, new insight, actionable insight from all around the world. And students are encouraged to do that. As you know, you're both teachers in our programs, instructors in our programs, and I know from the reports coming out of your class that you found extraordinary innovative ways to sort of engage students. And we have at the very heart of what we teach this notion that marketing is both human-centered and data-driven. And I think it's very difficult to be a marketer today, firstly, without being a learner, but most importantly, it's difficult to be a marketer without being human centric, and in many respects that means being a global citizen. And so, in everything we do, cases we use, speakers we invite, we've been working very hard to not only ensure our students understand the knowing how of marketing and not just the knowing what, but that they get perspectives about that industry and its impact more generally on culture, society, business, etc., from a very broad group of speakers and voices. And it's been an absolute pleasure to really, through this series, focus some of that attention on how the disciplines of marketing are applied globally, and to make sure that our students and indeed our faculty and the broader community remain aware of the changes, not just in consumer behavior, but the impact of technology on media, and also the evolution of some fascinating business models that have come from around the world. So, you know, NYU generally, always known as a global and very entrepreneurial school, the School of Professional Studies specifically has, you know, supported and encouraged professional education for 85, 90 years of existence. The Division of Programs of Business, where I work, brings together a lot of these business disciplines in HR and PR and marketing and the management of technology. And so we have really committed ourselves through programs like the Shanghai Go Local program to be at the very center of these discussions. So I think it probably is a good place to end. I believe there may be some questions coming in from the audience panel, and it's our intention for at least one or two or all of us to be live on the day that this goes out. But I just want to thank both Paul and Bryce for their extraordinary work in leading this series and continuing to push us to think about the lessons we can learn from China. And also to thank two of my colleagues, Robin Smith and Patrick Brady at the school, who have helped immeasurably to actually pull today's recording off. So without further ado, many, many thanks. And we look forward to seeing all parents and alumni in person on campus. Please come find us and look us up.